This is lesson 3 of No More Creative Writing Groans. Today we will be writing a bio poem about a famous person in history, or it may be someone alive today. That's fine. Or it may be a character from a book, or perhaps you have a sports figure you want to write about, or maybe you want to write about a character from a movie. You will have a template to use in order to help you write out this poem. I hope you enjoy this class. Let's get started. No More Creative Writing Groans, Lesson 3. This is the template that you will use for your bio poem. If you were to ever use this type of poem for other projects that you have for school or whatever you might find that you need to do a nice little creative writing project on, you can choose the number of lines. You may want to add more lines. You may want to take away some of the lines. I added more lines from the original poem template. Years ago, when I used this poem template, it was an auto-bio poem, and the project was to write about yourself. But today, I want you to write it about someone else. That's what biographies are, written about someone else and their life, who they were. So you do not have to do someone in the past. You can do someone in the present. You can do a fictional person from a book or a movie character. You can do a sports figure, someone famous from history, someone famous today. You may choose who you want to do it on and then follow each line what it says. So for example, line 1, character's first name. So you'll put the very first name of that character that you've chosen. And then you'll want to write born in and then finish out the answer there. 4 descriptive traits. Don't write 4 descriptive traits. You would just write those 4 traits. But you would write in lines 4 through 12, you're going to start your line the way it shows here. Sibling of, lover of, who felt, who needed, who gave, who feared, who wanted to see, lived in, died in, and then you'll fill in the year and place, character's last name. Now also line 2, you're going to need to start it with born in. I'm going to show you an example of what I did, and then we'll work on one together. I chose to do one on Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie, and I titled my bio poem, Pioneer Girl. This is the way my project looks when it's completed. We've already talked about putting pictures in your projects, and then you can use a transparency slider to on either Keynote, or which would be opacity, or you can use the transparency slider on Google Slides to fade out your picture so that you can write a little bit more. Or maybe you just want your picture and not the words over it. That's fine either way. Now I am going to slide in here so that you can see what we're going by, okay, our template here. So line 1, character's first name, and I have that, Laura. And then I put born in Pepin, Wisconsin on February 7, 1867. The 4 descriptive traits: 4 feet 11 inches, unselfish, brave, hard worker. Sibling of, 4 descriptive traits: 4 feet 11 inches, unselfish, brave, hardworking. And then sibling of Mary, Carrie, and Grace. Then line 5 is lover of reading and writing. Now there's a lot of things I could have chosen, but I chose to just focus on the reading and the writing. Who felt, and of course there's lots of different options for this, who felt happy when Paul played his violin? Who needed to help her ma with chores? Who gave her money to pay Mary's tuition? Who feared the Indians when they came to the cabin? Who wanted to hear Pa's stories over and over? Now, notice in line 10, I changed that from who wanted to see. So if you wanted to change that to another sense, you could do who wanted to see or who wanted to hear, who wanted to taste, who wanted to touch, who wanted to smell. If you want to just change one of those senses, that would be fine with me. Lived in Minnesota, South Dakota, Kansas, Missouri, and Wisconsin. Died in Mansfield, Missouri on February 10, 1957. Wow. She lived, looks like about 90 years, almost exactly. And character's last name, Ingalls Wilder. So it's going to be read straight through like this. Laura, born in Pepin, Wisconsin on February 7, 1867, 4 foot 11 inches, unselfish, brave, hardworking, sibling of Mary, Carrie, and Grace, lover of reading and writing, who felt happy when Pa played his violin, who needed to help her ma with chores, who gave her money to pay for Mary's tuition, who feared the Indians when they came to the cabin, who wanted to hear Pa's stories over and over, lived in Minnesota, South Dakota, Kansas, Missouri, and Wisconsin, died in Mansfield, Missouri on February 10, 1957, Ingalls Wilder. Now, this is a great activity to do for a book report. If you were to do a character analysis, this is a great format to do it in this poem format. So keep that in mind, that just because you do it in class today doesn't mean that's the last time you have to do it. You can always plug this in anytime you need to. That's why I would save all of your writings, any templates that I give you, I would save in a notebook, because you never know. You may end up wanting to write about somebody else one day and decide to put it in a poem instead of just a boring paragraph or 3 or 4 paragraphs. All right, we're going to now work on another example, and we're going to learn about my favorite artist, Vincent van Gogh. Now, the correct way to say it, and I know this because I taught a class about Vincent van Gogh to a student who lived in Holland or in the Netherlands. And I taught this class, and a student that was in the Netherlands was taking it from me. And she told me that the correct pronunciation is Vincent van Gogh. But I feel like I'm clearing my throat every time I say that, so I'm going to just go with Vincent van Gogh. I'm going to give you some information about Vincent van Gogh. He was one of the most tragic artists who ever lived, and unfortunately, nothing ever seemed to go right for him. He wasn't very happy, and he never even smiled when he painted self-portraits of himself. So you can see here, even his eyes don't look very happy. He was not an easy person to get along with, but the way I see it is he struggled with some issues that he wasn't able to get help for. And he wanted friends, but he got angry too easily. I believe he was such a perfectionist that little things would irritate him, and he was just hard to really get along with, and nobody wanted to give him the time of day, and they didn't like his paintings, and this made him very, very sad. He just wanted to be accepted. He was born in 1853 in Holland, and he died in France in 1890. Now, unlike most artists, he didn't decide to become a painter until he was grown up. He tried lots of other things first. Some of the things that he tried: working in an art gallery selling paintings. He also tried teaching. However, because of his personality, that wasn't the best thing for him because kids did not like him very much. He worked in a bookstore, and he also tried to be a preacher like his dad, but none of those things really made him very happy. And finally, one day, he decided he would be an artist. And this was also encouraged by his brother Theo. Now, everything that Vincent van Gogh did, he always tried his best. He went to different art schools to learn everything he could about drawing and painting. And many of his early paintings were of poor people that he used to help when he was a preacher. He really did love people, and he really loved the poor people. Van Gogh's very first paintings look very different than the paintings several years later that he would paint. He also painted these people looking very tired and not very happy. They worked very hard to survive back then. The colors in Van Gogh's early paintings are very dark and sad. And he did this because he really wanted people to know how hard the lives of these poor people were. In this painting, Bedroom at Arles, you can see how different it looked from the first painting I showed you. At this point, he was using many different colors. He loved using the color yellow and blue. And when he would paint, he would use very thick paint. He didn't care that he would use a whole tube when he didn't really need to. But that's what makes his paintings so unique, are the thick colors that he used. Now, his brother, Theo, who was younger, would write letters to him, and Vincent would write letters to Theo. And this is how we know so much about his life, because Theo's wife saved the letters after both Vincent and Theo died. They died within about a year apart from each other. And they were both very young. Vincent was about 37 years old, 38 years old, and Theo was only about 34 years old. So they didn't live very long. Theo encouraged his brother to paint, and he sent him money whenever he could. Now, Vincent van Gogh sent letters and received letters often, and he got to know his postman very well. The postman actually became friends with him, and so did the postman's family. And you could actually Google Vincent van Gogh's painting postman, and you will see the postman, and you will see other paintings of the postman's family that he painted. In 1886, Vincent moved to Paris, France to join Theo. Now, Paris was the center of the art world at that time. So, Theo was in the business of buying and selling paintings, and that's why he was there in Paris. Vincent wanted to be an artist. It seemed like a very good place for him to go live. Theo was able to introduce him to a lot of the painters that lived in Paris. Lots of these painters are known today. Georges Seurat is one of them, Camille Pissarro, Paul Gauguin, and they're actually world famous artists at that time and of course today. Now, Paul Gauguin, he decided to be friends with, and they actually were roommates for a little while. But the problem is that Gauguin, he wasn't that easy of a person to live with, and neither was Vincent van Gogh. And so they really didn't get along, and they argued a lot. So they decided Gauguin decided to move out, and this, of course, upset Vincent van Gogh because he just wanted to be friends so badly with people, and they just didn't understand him. Now, Van Gogh at this time is living in Arles, France, and this is when he painted this bedroom. Van Gogh didn't know what to do when Gauguin left. He had really wanted things to work out with him. But as I told you earlier, Van Gogh always had problems during his life with the way he felt and trying to be able to keep friends. So sometimes he would get so upset and angry that no one can make him feel better. And this time he was so angry and so upset that he actually cut off part of his ear. It was like the lower part of his ear. And here you can see right after that, he painted a self-portrait called Self-Portrait with Bandaged Ear. And in the picture, it kind of looks like maybe he regrets that he cut part of his ear off. It really wasn't a good thing to do. Sometimes he was too angry to paint. He was sometimes too sad to paint. But when he felt good, he painted better than ever before. And this painting, The Starry Night, is one of those times when he felt better than ever. He painted the stars the way he envisioned the stars. And in this painting, he actually painted, scientists say that he actually painted Venus, which is right here. So that's pretty interesting. Now, this was the second Starry Night, but this is my favorite Starry Night, and I'm sure that you have seen this. It's used in lots of different merchandise. Now, in this painting called Olive Trees, 1889, Van Gogh made the sun look really hot. You can see, there we go. You can see it's not super clear. You can look this up, Olive Trees, 1889. You can see, you can almost feel like you should put sunglasses on to look at it. If you were to see this painting in real life, he used very thick painting, and you can see the ripples. That's actually the thick paint, the texture from the thick paint. Now, this is a detail from one of my favorite paintings called Sunflowers. Whenever you go to an art museum, if there's any Van Gogh paintings, you need to make sure you see Van Gogh. But in London, England is where I have seen sunflowers. And anytime I would visit there, I would go and I had to, the very first place I went, I would have to go see sunflowers. And because when you would look at them, the painting was so thick that it would be like they were 3D. You could almost just reach in and pull out a handful of sunflowers. They were just beautiful to look at. Pictures do not do them justice at all. But sometimes he painted so fast he didn't even mix his colors. And as I've told you before, he'd glob on the paint very thick, and he would use paint right out of the tube. He would just squeeze it on. Most artists will have a little palette there that they'll mix, but not Van Gogh. He would just squeeze it on and paint. So he didn't care about any palettes. He used so much paint, he was always running out, and sometimes he would stop buying food in order to buy more paint. So a lot of the times he would be very hungry. Now, unfortunately, nobody really liked Van Gogh's paintings, and in fact, he only sold a few drawings and maybe one or two paintings in his lifetime. People in the 1880s and 1890s just weren't used to the bright moving pictures that Van Gogh made. But today things are very different because now people have learned how beautiful Vincent van Gogh's paintings are. Many, many people know who Vincent van Gogh is and love his paintings today. In fact, if you were to purchase the Starry Night, the one I showed you, let me pull that one back up. If you were to purchase this one, you would have to pay at least $100 million to get it. That is what it's valued at. I have found that several years back, so it could be worth more now. $100 million. Sunflowers back in the 90s sold for $53 million. So you would have to be very, very wealthy in order to be able to have these paintings, and you would need to have a very good security system in your home if you were to purchase one. Now, this may have been his last painting. Some people think it shows how upset he was, or how angry he may have been. Notice that the road just kind of ends into a scary background. You've got crows, you've got stormy skies. And soon after this, Vincent van Gogh died. So now I want to write a Vincent van Gogh bio poem. So I want you to think about what we could say in our poem using that template. Okay, so we're going to be an author at work. This is your template. I want you to think about, we know the first part, character's first name, it was Vincent. And you can put born in Holland in 1853. Now, next were 4 descriptive traits. So I want you to think about 4 words that would describe who Vincent was as a person. Okay, descriptive traits. It could be, you can tell me his personality if you want, the way he looked, what his work ethic was like. Just 4 words that would describe him. So go ahead and pause and think about 4 things that you could say about him. Okay, my 4 words: artistic, redheaded, grouchy, misunderstood. Okay, next is Sibling of. Now he had other siblings, but for this one, the only thing we know is the name. So what was the brother's name? Do you remember? So you'd write down sibling of Theo. Next, lover of. What's something he loved? Pause and write down something that he loved. You can write 2 or 3 things if you want. Lover of. So pause. All right. Lover of. I wrote down lover of paint. He loved paint. Lots and lots of paint. Now, I would be very interested in what you chose, so you can send me a message showing me what you chose for Van Gogh if you wanted to. The next question is, who felt? Okay, I put, who felt angry and depressed? Now, remember, you can pause between each one. The next one is, who needed? Who needed popularity? He wanted to be popular. Not like I'm the best friend of everybody, popular like we think of, but he wanted people to like him. Next, who gave? Who gave beautiful masterpieces to the world? The next one, line 9, who feared? What are some things that he feared? Who feared not being liked? Now, these are not, your answers may vary from mine, and that's fine. There's lots of different things you can put here, lots of different ways of wording it. Next, who wanted to see? Who wanted to see his success in the art world? Line 11, lived in. Now this is where it's a little easier. He lived in where? Where are some of the places that he lived? He lived in Holland and France. If you want to be more specific, you can say Paris and Arles. Died in, so we're going to put the year and place. If you know it, sometimes you may not know it. You may have to take away that line if you don't know it, depending on your character. Maybe your character never died. Maybe it's a character from today. Died in France in 1890. Died in France in 1890. And then the last one's easy. You just put the character's last name, which is Van Gogh. All right, so I'm going to show you how it looks. Okay, this is how it looks when you're finished. Now, this is a little different than what I just wrote here. This one came from a live group that I taught, and these are some of the ideas that they came up with. This is the one that I came up with before I taught that class. So I'm going to read it to you. Artist is my title. Artist. Vincent, born in Holland in 1853, depressed, insecure, talented, tragic, sibling of Theo, lover of sunflowers and starry nights, who felt happy when painting, who needed friends, who gave letters to his brother, who feared being alone, who wanted to see his paintings be accepted, lived in Arles, died in France in 1890, Van Gogh. So there you have it. You have a very informational poem about the artist Vincent van Gogh. You may want to do an inventor, a scientist, or like I said, a sports figure, a king, a pharaoh, a fighter, anything that you choose that's either book related, or like I said, you could do a movie related character if you want. I just want you to be able to give a good character analysis, okay, character poem about this person, so that we, the rest of us reading it, can learn some new information, or learn about someone new. So you will have the template to do that with, and you can use Google Slides or Keynote, whichever one is easier for you. Now, in the next lesson, we will be using a new program on the internet that I think you're going to really enjoy, and we're going to be writing a story. So I'm looking forward to teaching you that class and seeing what you end up writing. And that does it for this lesson. Good luck with your poem. I look forward to seeing it, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.